As fuel prices rise, banana wholesalers in Mozambique resort to peddling their produce to market by bicycle.
Aiming to save the lives of at least 50,000 infants annually, Nigeria includes rotavirus vaccines in routine immunization schedules.
With hyper-realistic drawings that catch the eyes of critics, Nigerian artist Isaac Ekele joins a portraiture exhibition in the western U.S. state of Colorado.
Hello there. Thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Osawa, Channels Television here in Abuja. I'm joined by Vincent Makori from Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks. I'm Vincent Makori at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain Osawa in Abuja brings you that story.
The federal government of Nigeria has rolled out rotavirus vaccines to reduce neonatal deaths and undefined mortality to the bearers in the country. Speaking at the official launch to mark the 2022 African Vaccination Week, the executive director of the National Primary Health Care Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shoaibu, says the inclusion of the vaccines in the country's routine immunization schedule will help save at least 50,000 infants annually.
Officials of the Federal Ministry of Health, representatives of the World Health Organization and UNICEF are some of the dignitaries here to mark the 2022 African Vaccination Week in Abuja. The African Vaccination Week is set aside by the WHO for countries to showcase the protective powers of vaccines over child killer diseases. However, the rollout of the rotavirus vaccines to commemorate this year's African Vaccination Week provides the opportunity to save the lives of more infants.
Over 40% of the diarrhea that we see in Nigeria is due to the rotavirus. And then finally, we get the opportunity to provide a vaccine that can protect kids from rotavirus infection. We get the opportunity to prevent over 50,000 child deaths every single year from rotavirus. That is important, that is momentous, and we should be very proud of today.
The introduction of the rotavirus vaccine provides the opportunity to reduce the number of children dying every day from diarrhea disease caused by rotavirus.
Rotavirus is the main cause of acute diarrhea in infants, but can be prevented through vaccination.
If we work together to strengthen the primary healthcare system, to recruit more human resources, to have the right vaccines and drugs in place, we can really together make the difference and to reduce under 5 mortality in Nigeria.
I survived by chance because there was no vaccine in my time. But now it's by choice. We have the vaccine for them. And mothers and parents, please make sure you give these vaccines to your children so that we don't have many of our children coming down with diarrhea.
Vaccines are adjudged globally to be the most effective against killer diseases, and many hope that the rollout of the rotavirus vaccine will help Nigeria improve her neonatal health indices.
Joining us to discuss this is a public health consultant, Dr. Nse Abasi Ekanem. We're glad to have you join us on Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Vaccines. All right. Vaccines are judged to globally be the most effective against killer diseases. Do you see the rollout of these rotavirus vaccines helping to improve our neonatal survival indices?
Absolutely. Rotavirus vaccines are basically designed to prevent rotavirus infection that appears to affect most people within the first 5 years of their lives. And these vaccines actually helps for children in the age between the ages of 1 to 3 years to keep them resistant, to the rotavirus. We've seen the numbers of rotavirus cases in Nigeria coming up within the last few months, and it's believed that with the efforts of the federal government and other development partners, we can reduce this number to something that is absolutely minimal in our fight against childhood diseases.
Oh, that's interesting. Nigeria bears a huge burden of neonatal deaths, as the 2020 report by UNICEF says that the country records 113 deaths in every 1,000 births. With the latest rollout, can you put a timeline to how this trend can be reversed?
All right, so by my projection, I'm looking at the next 3 to 5 years to reverse this trend. It is apparent that the COVID-19 pandemic that happened in 2020 affected the number of women and children who had access to life-saving vaccines, including rotavirus. It happened that at that time, most healthcare workers were moved away from routine immunization to COVID-19 response and recovery. And as a result of that, less number of children or infants had access to vaccines. If we must retrace this, correct this trend, then we need to invest more in rolling out the rotavirus vaccine. And it is my expectation that if we roll out rotavirus vaccines, over the next 3 to 5 years, we will reverse this trend and we'll have close to about 43% improvement in the number of cases of mortality or morbidity with regards to rotavirus. And the way to do that is to make sure that we invest in vaccination, both in terms of procurement, management, and of course training of healthcare workers to provide this vaccine to children so that they would be protected from rotavirus. That way we can reverse the trend and ensure that we build a healthy community for all our infants.
It's one thing to roll out vaccines. It's a different kettle of fish entirely to have the community buy in. How do you suggest this be achieved?
Well, basically through what we call behavioral change and community engagement. We need to communicate the disease, the risk of rotavirus to people within the local and suburban communities. That way they would understand the need to have their children vaccinated. We need to also ensure that we have adequate manpower so that we can involve these people in what we call public health education. Health education is at the center of immunization anywhere around the world because we've seen that there's growing vaccine hesitancy in many parts of the world, and the only tool that can help us achieve, that can help us to reduce, vaccine hesitancy is health education. So we need to communicate more. We need to engage relevant stakeholders, the community leaders, the youth leaders, women leaders, and all other, relevant stakeholders that can help us communicate the importance of vaccination to people in the local and the suburban areas. That way, we can get them to appreciate the need and, of course, come to bring their children for immunization. I think that's the best way to approach vaccine hesitancy so that we can match whatever effort we are putting from the supply end with what is happening from the demand end. That way, we can have more people come out to take the vaccine or more children come out to take the vaccine so that we can have a safe country for everybody.
Now, beyond some of these issues raised, what key thing would you consider we need to adopt to ensure that we all can breathe easy?
Well, I think it's important that we actually invest more in healthcare. It's only unfortunate that after the COVID-19 pandemic, not much has been done with regards to investing more in healthcare. And that's why we need to make sure that we increase our investment in terms of human capital, in terms of commodities, health commodities, in terms of health infrastructure. This is what we need to do, and we must do that as soon as possible.
Dr. Onse Abasi-Kanem, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. After the break with the Ethiopian government and Tigrayan forces both laying claim to the area of Western Tigray, it could become a sticking point for peace talks aimed at ending a nearly 2-year civil war. Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent Makori in Washington. The disputed Ethiopian area of Western Tigray is expected to be a sticking point in the country's peace talks aimed at ending the nearly 2-year civil war. Forces allied with the federal government took control of the area, but Tigrayan forces say it must be returned for talks to move forward. Anna Wilkins gained rare access to the region and looks at why both sides are refusing to back down in this report from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
In the disputed region of Western Tigray, local officials led VOA into the hills close to the town of Addis Ababa. They claimed this was the site of a concentration camp run by the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or the TPLF, in the late 80s and early 90s. One witness says he was held in this cave along with many other Amharas, the TPLF persecuted because of their ethnicity decades ago.
I have known this place since the 80s. I was arrested here for 1 year and 7 months with my friend.
The history of Western Tigray, or Welkayet, as the Amhara regional government refers to it, is complex. Amhara forces wrestled control of Western Tigray from the TPLF during the current conflict that began in November 2020, claiming the TPLF wrongly annexed the region in the early 90s and that, historically, the region has always belonged to them. They urge the government to make it a legal part of Amhara.
This is what we describe as a zero-sum dispute at Crisis Group, and this is why it's such a hard problem to resolve.
Experts say any historical claim by the Amhara is irrelevant since Ethiopia's constitution states Western Tigray is part of the Tigray region.
Ethiopian constitution doesn't allow for that historical claim. Yeah, because this is endless, because you change. If I've seen these maps through time, every 50 years these borders were changing.
Researchers from the University of Gondar are seen here pulling bones out of the ground they claim belong to prisoners killed at the camp during TPLF rule. Many ethnic Amharas, they say, believe such alleged evidence of past atrocities show why the region should be under their control.
I'm hopeful that this will happen in the future, but at this point, it's just mapping the mass graves where they're located.
Since the Amhara occupied Western Tigray in early 2021, rights groups such as Human Rights Watch and Amnesty say Tigrayans are being attacked and forcibly removed from the region. A TPLF spokesperson declined to comment on how the fate of Western Tigray could factor into peace talks. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
In southeast Nigeria, a young entrepreneur, Mustafa Gajibo, is converting vehicles running on petrol to solar-powered mini-buses. The 300-level mechanical engineering student of the University of Maiduguri dropped out of school to follow his passion, renewable energy, and today he's better for it.
This green and white made in Nigeria Miniboss flies the Baga Road to Kasua, and local passengers are seen going aboard as they can hardly tell its difference from vehicles running on petrol. Electric minibuses are the handwork of Nigerian entrepreneur Mustafa Gajibo, who says he has a passion in renewable energy, one that was conflicting with his university education. He says he has always had a drive for innovation, technical creativity, and renewable energy.
So prices of transportation is also going up. And another concern is the climate change also. You know, the vehicles and the energy sources we're using mostly are fossil fuel powered. So they are causing so much damage to our environment. And I believe that someone somewhere have to come up with solutions to solve all these problems.
The converted minibuses can transport 8 passengers, including the driver, but that wasn't enough for Mustafa and his team. They realized they could increase the efficiency and sustainability of the vehicles if they built theirs from scratch.
The first tricycle is a 4-seater tricycle that can cover a distance of up to 200 kilometers on one charge. And It has a loading capacity of up to 700 kg. It has some battery packs inside, which you get it fully charged. And when it is fully charged, it covers a distance of 150 to 200 kilometers. We have built a 12-seater bus, which can cover a distance of up to 200 kilometers on 1 hour. And we also put into consideration a lot of challenges that we got at the converted models, which we tried as much as possible to develop more technology that will suit the need of the people. So this bus has a seating capacity of 12, can cover a distance of 200 kilometers on one charge. It is fully air conditioned. It's even having latest features of vehicles like voice command system, electric doors, and many more features that you can find in 2021 or 2022 vehicles.
So far, they've built 50 electric tricycles and 10 electric minibuses. And for now, Mustafa has one charging station powered by solar for the electric vehicles.
It's time now for a short break, and as we do, we remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, making micro-mobility clean and affordable after experiencing the convenience of riding scooters abroad. A group of entrepreneurs bring eco-friendly scooters to Nigeria.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. With transportation costs tripling in the past year, Mozambican wholesalers are sending bananas to market by bicycle instead of truck, aiming to reduce spending on fuel. From Monica province in western Mozambique, Andre Baptista has the story, narrated by Carol Gunsberg.
Buying and selling green bananas feeds thousands of wholesalers' families in central Mozambique. But rising fuel costs and inflationary price hikes are cutting into their profits. So the wholesalers are using bicycles instead of trucks to get their fruit to market. The trip can sometimes be a grueling 90 kilometers or 56 miles a day.
It's better to pedal the bike so I can survive. If I go by car, when I come back, I can't buy more bananas from the farmers because I won't have money left.
These wholesalers typically buy fruit from farmers, then hire truck drivers to deliver it to the markets. But since January, truckers have doubled their transport fees because of rising fuel prices, and farmers have begun charging more for every bunch of bananas. Banana prices for consumers haven't risen as much at the markets, so the wholesalers are squeezed.
When fuel costs go up, the price of bananas goes up as well. But to transport this many bananas by truck costs a lot of money. I wouldn't have any profit.
The price of gas is getting too expensive. I buy the bananas and go to the city. I put them in the rear bike rack. I had a motorbike, but I sold it because gas prices are increasing a lot.
Banana wholesaler Elias Carrera said he wished he didn't have to travel the roughly 30 kilometers from outside Makate village to Chimoio, a provincial capital in central Mozambique.
It would be helpful to have a market near us. If we had one around, we could just take the bananas there and customers will come to buy.
Mozambique's government attributes rising fuel prices to the war in Ukraine, pushing up international crude prices. Analysts say pandemic-related inflation also contributes to the price hikes. In June, inflation in Mozambique accelerated to nearly 11% from just over 9% the previous month. The Bank of Mozambique predicts purchasing power will worsen, meaning banana wholesalers can expect more peddling. For Andre Batista in Monica province, Mozambique, Carol Gunsberg, VOA News.
A group of 4 friends who had experienced how scooters made their lives easy while living in the diaspora have now decided to replicate same and produce eco-friendly scooters in Nigeria. The co-founder and chief executive officer of Trek Scooters, Isaac Oyedokun, says the project is coming at a time when alternatives on micromobility in the country are not clean and affordable.
With just 5 minutes to the start of our next lecture, university student Nancy Enuma rushes out of her hostel. Enuma uses her phone to scan and unlock her preferred mode of transportation, a parked scooter. A journey that usually takes her 20 minutes now takes her just 3 minutes.
It's faster to get to class, and also you can use it for recreational activities, maybe in the evening when you're done with classes or when you're stressed out, basically.
Trek Scooters was found and self-funded by a group of 4 friends who had experienced how scooters made their lives easy while living overseas and decided to replicate it in Nigeria.
Trek Scooter is our baby, and we are really excited to be on this project at this time, especially when alternatives of micromobility in Nigeria are not clean. And then that's when we see, an opportunity in this to, bring a clean and also affordable transportation.
The scooters are set to go as fast as 20 km per hour and can be ridden for up to 6 hours before needing a recharge. It costs the first 5 US cents to unlock the scooter and 2.5 cents for every other minute.
Even if I'm running late, I'm not scared of how I'm going to run the whole 10 minutes journey. I would rather just log in with my phone and I'll be there in 3 minutes.
But while the students laud the scooters for its eco-friendly, fun and affordable features, Enuma says she still has reservations of safety, a concern that the Trek Scooter team said they are aware of and part of the features that they will address in their next upgrade.
The new deployment that we're looking to roll out in about 2 months, we come with a helmet for all our riders to be able to wear whenever they're riding our scooters. So we are big on safety, and we always preach this or emphasize this in every community we go from the time of launch.
External funding and expansion remains top on the list as they get to scale up, including opportunities to teach students how to fabricate the scooter's parts, cutting down on imports.
Nigerian artist Isaac Ekele is part of an exhibition of portraiture in the western U.S. state of Colorado. Viewer Scott Stearns reports on his hyper-realistic drawings.
Isaac Ekele prides himself on the details. Using charcoal pencils, graphite pencils, and soft blending brushes, he layers his portraits from lighter to darker.
When I'm done having a perfect shade of the picture, then I start adding details, like the hair to be very realistic, the eyes, so that when someone sees it, he will think it's a picture, not a drawing. That's what I want to achieve.
Ekele's work is part of a Portrait of a Culture exhibit in the western U.S. city of Denver that includes fashion and dance. Curator Shanna Shelby says Ekele's skill elevates pencil drawing.
Maybe a single portrait of a single person would be very simple, but the way that he does it is just with incredible technique.
At home in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, Ekele splits his time between personal projects and commissioned portraits. Of his work on exhibit in the United States, he told VOA he is most proud of My Mom's Prayer.
The prayers my mom gives me and all that, her encouragement ever since I lost my dad, and her sincere wishes for me to become something, great in future. Through her prayers and, support and backings, I've been able to, develop this determination.
The struggle came from children he saw in the market.
How they were suffering, and I saw one holding another, trying to give him food and something. And I just got that picture and I said, I'm going to replicate what I see, because I get my inspiration from my environment most times.
Breaking Loose is about empowering women.
The rope is already loosening up. It has to tell about the, gender inequality, how ladies before, they don't get the opportunity to speak in their nation, especially in Africa. Most times ladies are being kept quiet. They don't want them to participate.
Ekele says he's encouraged by the public response.
I just want my audience to try to, to resonate with what I do, to try to reason the way I reason, you understand? That way they'll be able to understand my kind of drawing. because it's mostly built out of emotion.
In Denver, curator Shelby says it's emotion and effort that set Ekele apart.
Sometimes we got caught up with time, right? Like maybe it takes too long to create that portrait. But the respect that I give Isaac is that he spends that time and he finishes the portrait, and they are personal to him, and the way that he makes them personal makes it personal to us too. And so we relate to that very deeply.
Ekele's work is on display in the Colorado Capitol through the end of August. Scott Stearns, VOA News, Denver.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Remember, channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Osor. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.